Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Community Garden on WMUC College Park. This week we have an amazing show. I'm Dylan, by the way, and I'm here with my friend Matt. Matt, how you doing?
I'm great. I am great. I hope everyone is doing just as great as Dylan and I tonight. And we're going to jump right into the action, and I will let you guys know a little bit about our musical guest this week, Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan is also affectionately known as just Chaka, or the Queen of Funk. She has 60 years of life and 40 years in the music business, which she has notably said equals 100% Chaka. She has, in her 40 years of her music career, released 22 studio albums, dropping her first solo album in 1978. And we're going to come and listen to a track right now, which is actually written by Prince, a fellow R&B artist. And this track is going to feature Melly Mel on rap vocals, and in fact, Stevie Wonder on the harmonica. Some people say that this is the first R&B track to feature a rap artist. And we're going to listen to this song, which was released as a single in the August of 1984. It's called I Feel For You by
Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, got a feel for you. Chaka Khan, what you tell me what you wanna do? Do you feel for me the way I feel for you? Chaka Khan, let me tell you what I wanna do. I wanna love you, wanna hug you, wanna squeeze you too. And let me take it in my arms, let me feel you with my charm, Chaka. Cause you know that I'm the one to keep you warm, Chaka. I make it more than just a physical dream. I wanna rock you, Chaka, baby, cause you make me wanna scream. Let me rock it, rock it. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, got the feel for you, feel for you. let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it 'cause I feel for you. Chaka Khan, would you tell me what you wanna do? Do you feel for me the way I feel for you? Chaka Khan, let me tell you what I wanna do. I wanna love you, wanna hug you, wanna squeeze you too. So let me take you in my arm, let me feel you with my tongue, Chaka. 'Cause you know that I'm the one to keep you warm, Chaka. I'm making more than just a physical dream. I wanna rock you, Chaka, 'cause you make me wanna scream. Feel for you.
Welcome back to the Community Garden, everyone, on WMUC Digital College Park. That track was Chaka Khan's I Feel For You, a single she released in 1984. So today on The Garden, we will be discussing a lot about change. Change on different timescales. We experience change every day in our day-to-day lives. We experience change weekly, monthly. Matt and I have experienced a lot of change in the past couple semesters at school, the last one in particular, and we'll also discuss a little bit of a larger timescale change going on, climate change right now. So, Matt, what's changing in your life right now?
Well, really, I feel like I'm in a bit of a stagnant period in terms of change in my life. In terms of larger scale changes, the semester has come in and we are in full swing. So I'm kind of in that mode for right now and don't expect that to change. But the changes that are coming into my life are some changes that I have just decided to make on a personal note, just things to better myself, maybe take up some new activities I have been doing in the past, or perhaps be a little more mindful of my actions. I always like to try to improve, and improvement is change.
Absolutely. What kind of things do you want to be more mindful of?
I just would like to be more mindful of my actions. When I act, you perceive my actions, and you make assumptions based on these actions that you have perceived of my motivations. So the clearest I can be with my words and actions to deliver my message is the best for me, honestly.
Oh, nice.
What kind of changes have you been experiencing lately, Dylan?
I feel like today I have a different answer than yesterday. I feel like I'm changing quite a bit. And I don't know, the past couple of days I've been stressed, to be honest. Stressed.
Because of changes?
Yes. My last semester, as you know, I was in Bhutan.
Right.
And this academic experience, while incredible, was much different than the academic experience that I am getting right now at the University of Maryland. A much more intimate academic experience with a much smaller group of people, taking all the same classes with the same professors, living with your professors, eating your meals with your professors, and learning was happening all the time, and all this learning was towards this common theme of environmentalism, of culture, of the interaction of the two. And then here at the University of Maryland, all my classes are all over the place, and my professors are all over the place, and they are less available, and I'm just moving around so much, doing all these different things, and I think that what is making me a little stressed is this lack of a cohesion and common theme throughout
Right.
these activities.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. Sometimes it feels like I'm bouncing around from one subject to the other. I'll go from a Spanish course to a math class,
Yeah.
and I feel jumbled.
Yeah.
Like you said, these changes have
Definitely.
jumbled my mental ability. But, coming back here to College Park has been a change for the both of us. And honestly, it's leading into one of the longer term changes we've talked about, and that's graduation.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that coming up?
Yeah, I'm good. I have started, and by started I mean very minimally started, like putting energy into thinking about what I will do after school.
Yeah.
It's coming up fairly soon.
It's getting real.
And I don't know, like a lot of my like thoughts are towards some sort of exploration or adventure. This will be like the last year that will be structured around school for me. And after this, I'm honestly having these like kind of longer existential thoughts of like, this is a lot of time that I am about to be dropped into.
Right.
Unstructured time. All of my time this far has been structured. And that is a huge change.
Yeah.
And so, maybe an exploration, maybe an adventure, something like that. I'd be very willing to go back to school. Not just yet. I don't really know what I would like to do or study further. But also very interesting, something we discussed last week with Addie is farming, urban farming. Just want to get food to people that don't have it and healthy food.
Sounds great, man.
So, a lot going on in my head. What about you? How are you feeling with graduation?
I'm feeling pretty good. As I was just telling you, I was just at the beach and I had a lot of time to think. And I have thought to myself that, endings is not really what frightens me. I'm not frightened of an end. What does frighten me is the idea that perhaps there will not be a new beginning.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty optimistic that I have a new beginning somewhere after graduation. I'm not sure what that will be, but I am definitely heartwarmed by the end of this college career, and I'm excited for a change. I'm definitely excited for a change. It seems like it has dragged on for me a little bit. I'm excited to switch it up a little bit.
Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for us. And everyone who's experiencing change right now.
Yeah, a lot of our friends are graduating with us, Dylan, and we're all going to go off into separate directions, kind of like how we experienced that change after we graduated from high school. How many high school friends do you really keep in touch with? I wonder what it will be like 4 years after I graduate from college, how many of my UMD friends I will be around.
Yeah.
Change, man. It's in the wind.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to some Chaka Khan here and dive into the rest of the show. This next track is called Like Sugar. This is off of her brand new 2019 album called Hello Happiness. And enjoy this brand new track by Chaka Khan.
It's like sugar, so sweet, good enough to eat. When you feel the fun, I can't beat. Get up on your feet. It's like sugar, so sweet, good enough to eat. When you feel the fun, I can't beat. Get up on your feet. Wow, what a state that I'm in. Everybody here is dancing. All I wanna do is get your body next to mine. Baby, won't you step to me? Come on, honey, make a move. Let me take you something about this funky groove.
You guys just listened to Chaka Khan's 2019 song Like Sugar off of her album Hello Happiness. And we are joined now in the studio by our conversational guest this week, Emily Fox. Emily, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
True.
Great.
That's good.
That's awesome.
Well, Emily, we're really excited to have you this week. Again, a super freaking involved student, which is awesome because you're only a sophomore here. So we have 2 more awesome years of Emily Fox on this campus.
Aw, stop it.
So one of the things that you're involved with is you're an organizer with AFSCME, which is the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. The 1072 chapter.
1072.
1072.
Yes.
Nice. And this is a union representing campus employees, pretty much. Another thing, you are very involved in the UMD co-op scene. You helped organize the co-op protests in 2018. You had many meetings with the director of STAMP, raised over $15,000 to try to save the co-op. And you're also involved in starting the next co-op for the CP community, which is awesome. You're also currently helping to organize the UMD chapter of the DC climate strike, which is upcoming very soon. This summer, you worked with the Labor Network of Sustainability. And on top of that, you are changing your diet, which is awesome. Recently became vegetarian. And also, you've been in the running club on campus, so staying active as well. Maybe not a current member, but you have done activities with the running club before.
I have done activities.
Yeah, nice. So, Emily, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, one thing I would think that everyone is definitely interested is getting some information about what happened to the co-op and kind of what we can expect to change coming into the future.
Yeah, so I put a lot of energy into the co-op. I would go to the co-op and stuff last year, and I made friends there, but I only started working there during spring semester of last year. And that was right when right after I started working there was when the STAMP told them that they were planning on shutting them down. And when I started working there, they were already like $50,000 in debt. So
Wow. Well,
it was a bad situation. And so yeah, if you're wanting to know how the debt was accumulated
and what even the co-op is, I'm sure there are some
yeah,
people
okay,
listening
so
who might
the co-op
not know.
was a it was a sandwich shop and cafe that was run by students. And in most businesses, there's a boss that makes the decisions, and then the workers just, do what the boss says, and the boss owns the business. But in the co-op, everybody who worked there was also an owner of the business, and decisions were made democratically. And so the co-op started on campus out of a need for healthy food because the dining hall food was not very good, and there wasn't really any other options for people if they wanted to get, especially vegan, vegetarian food and fresh food. And so students on campus just started doing these guerrilla sandwich lines where they would make sandwiches and just give them out on McKeldin Mall. But they didn't have the proper, safety regulations because you need a kitchen if you want to sell food. And so then they protested and they got a space for a co-op. And that was in 1975. So it has been on campus for almost 50 years before it shut down.
Wow.
And I think that, a lot of people sort of point to the co-op's closure and they say, oh, see, cooperative business doesn't work. But 50 years is a really long time for a business to exist.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the reason why it shut down was because there was increased competition for healthy food items on campus. And right when we started losing money was when the dining plan switched from having to buy every single meal to the buffet style plan, and they had lots of more vegan and vegetarian options. And also they had more of these fast food places in Stamp, which would take the dining dollars. If students were on the dining plan, then they would be able to just swipe their card and get free food, basically. Or it was prepaid for food. And also just it was 15 students with no experience in running a business, coming together to try to run this co-op, which is, we're sort of at a disadvantage, I would say.
Absolutely.
But it was really a shame, though, because we had just gotten this dishwasher. We had gotten a grant for a dishwasher, which we calculated would save enough money to pay for the rent costs, and we would break even. And then we also got, right before we closed, the last meeting we had with the administration, this guy from Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy, which is, it's a co-op development organization. They offered to give us, they said that we were in a very excellent position to receive a loan that would pay back all of the money to Stamp, and then they would work with us, because they have people that work there that are experts in running co-ops, to revitalize our business, and Stamp would not have to absorb any of the costs because they would give us a non-extractive loan, meaning that we wouldn't have to pay back interest. But they still said no. Which I thought was very unjust.
Who said no? The Stamp?
It was the Stamp. So Marcia, who is the director of the Stamp Student Union, and I think they were just sort of done with us, and they didn't really believe that we would be able to
turn it around.
So that's what I was going to ask is, what was their reasoning for saying no to the continuation of the Maryland Food Collective?
Their reasoning was just that they did not, they just didn't believe that a food business would be competitive in College Park. And they were like, you're just not going to succeed, even if you try to turn things around.
I think that is very unfortunate because, just simplifying the co-op to a food business, I think is disrespectful to what was going on there. It was a space for people to gather. I know a lot of my friends met each other there. It was a space for art. It was a safe space for a lot of marginalized communities on campus and members of those communities. So, just that reductionist, kind of
just
view
to
towards
it.
it.
It has more value than the money it would make for the university.
And also,
they could put something else in there that would be more profitable for the university. And so,
well, we will see. Has Adele's in Stamp been replaced yet?
Is it closed?
It has been closed.
No way.
It's been closed. I'm not really sure if there's something else there. I don't think there is anything there.
I think they were struggling to find somebody to come in and take it over.
Well, this is funny. I've been to Adele's once, and for those who don't know, Adele's is a fine, quote-unquote, fine dining restaurant in the top floor of Stamp Student Union. One of my professors took me there for lunch, actually.
Huh, great.
And paid for it, which was cool, but it was really out of place. And when I was
Yeah.
in there, it was really just old white guys
Yeah.
sitting around in their nice suits having a lunch.
It's very out of place.
Yeah.
And it reeks of administration
Yeah.
when you walked in there, and had a very purposeful and convenient view of the football stadium.
Yes, for sure.
Oh my
Well,
God.
Emily, let's talk about
That's what they care about.
for sure. Well, let's talk about what the future of the
Yeah.
UMD co-op scene will look like. Yeah, so tell me what the plans are for this new idea of a clothing co-op.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of people who when the co-op closed, they're just sort of like, oh man, we're never gonna have anything this cool ever again. This is so sad. But there was also a lot of people that were excited about the opportunity to start something new, and it definitely is really difficult since we don't have that space anymore. Like, we're realizing that, like, how valuable this space was just for organizing things. But the idea for this thrift store co-op is that the original food co-op addressed the market failure. And the co-ops usually address market failures that, like, businesses that are oriented towards making a profit don't always capture all of the needs of the community. And the idea of the original co-op was that it addressed this market failure of not having enough healthy food on campus. And the idea of this thrift store co-op is that we now have this very huge market failure, large-scale market failure of overproduction and overconsumption of many different items. And it's fueling climate change and global warming and also exploitation of workers in other countries, especially with the fast fashion industry, where like companies like H&M, Forever 21, I can't think of all, like Zara, I don't know, all these trendy stores which make very cheap clothes that are made to break quickly. They'll just sell as many clothes as they can very cheaply, and because they break so quickly, you'll have to buy more of them, and a lot of these clothes are wasted. And so the idea of our thrift store co-op is that it would address that market failure, and instead of throwing away their clothes that people no longer wear, they could trade them in for other clothes that are at our thrift store, or donate them also to textile recycling services.
Very nice. And this is going to start tomorrow, right?
Wow.
It is. Our first clothing swap is tomorrow at the First Look Fair. So
Heck yeah.
we'll be tabling and we'll have clothes there. So if anybody's listening and they have old clothes which they no longer wear, bring it to our clothing swap and you'll get credits, which you'll be able to exchange for
Clothes.
other clothes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
That's a great idea, honestly. And with the removal of Rugged Warehouse, which used to be down there on Route 1, I think College Park is definitely, in the local sense, lacking a affordable clothing store within walking distance. So I think that's a great idea.
Well, I hope that people are excited about it. And there's a new thrift store that just opened up that's called Uptown Cheapskate or something.
Oh, that's
But
a
I've
chain
heard a lot
store,
of their
isn't it?
it's
It
a chain
is.
store, and a lot of their clothes are actually like pretty expensive, and they curate all the clothing like pretty hard. And so it's more like a vintage store, I guess. Not
Right.
not vintage, but it's like
A hipster store.
Yeah, it's sort of like and we're sort of aiming to make it accessible for people, so that it's like you don't have to pay for clothes.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then so the other part of it is that it would be worker owned, and the reason why I think that worker ownership is important is because, and this gets into why I work for the union too, which is that we understand the value of democracy in our government because we need to hold our leaders accountable, but most of our lives are dictated by our employers, like how much food you'll be able to eat, because that depends on how much you get paid, and how much you'll be able to see your family and friends, because that depends on your hours, and just all types of, and what conditions you'll work in 8 hours of the day or more. But those are just determined by our employers without people really getting a say in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is why we see, it's at least part of the reason for why we see so much inequality I just read a study that said that the average the pay ratio of the average CEO to the average worker of like all the like S&P 500 companies or something is like in the 70s it was like 20-1, and now it is 354-1.
Wow.
And it's like that is where I'm just like there's such a big problem in this country. And I think that if workers did have more of a say, we would have less of that kind of inequality. And maybe not everything maybe has to be turned into a co-op, but I think that like having that model there and it encourages people to think about how things could be run differently.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing, Emily, because it's one thing to call out like these injustices, but it's another thing to like actively put a system against that in place. And if you're doing that for this campus, then that is really awesome. So
Right.
I appreciate that.
And it was perfect to see Stamp unfortunately closed the food co-op, but you guys and your group continue the morals and values of that program here on campus,
For
which
sure.
I feel are pretty desperately needed here at UMD.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be right back with some conversation with Emily, everyone, but we're going to jump right back into some Chaka Khan. This next track is called I'm Every Woman off of her 1978 album titled Chaka. Enjoy.
Anything you want done, baby, do it naturally.
you guys just listened to Chaka Khan's track "I'm Every Woman" off of her 1978 album Chaka. Now we're going to hop into a little section called Tree and Path of the Week. This Tree and Path of the Week is a little different as it may not highlight the natural beauty aesthetics that we usually touch on here on Tree and Path of the Week. Instead, we're going to start you guys off at the top of the hill on Campus Drive, right out there in Cold Field House. You can go ahead and check out Cold Field House, and it's new construction and construction that's been going on pretty much my entire time here at UMD. But that is coming to a close and will likely be closed here in the fall of 2019. And you guys can head down east on Campus Drive and down the hill. You guys will see a bunch of construction projects going on. I know they're working on the stamp on the back and front of that building. And maybe they have not started to break ground quite yet, but you can definitely see the fences that they've put up around the traffic circle there. They will be adding the Purple Line there on Campus Drive. And in its path are 3 or 4 beautiful willow oaks that join the big M there at the entrance of campus, right there at the traffic circle on Campus Drive. And unfortunately, these trees will come down in the wake of the Purple Line. Dylan, thoughts on that?
Well, that is a tough question because, well, 4 beautiful, big, old willow oaks will come down, which is sad for me.
Sad.
On a positive note, that big old ugly M will come down. I don't really care. I don't really care too much for that.
Here I go. I think you're gonna go. The Purple Line will, increase.
Well, that's what I was gonna say next. Was that giving more people access to the DC metro area and also to campus through this light rail system will be great. I'm all for public transportation. So
yeah. Change comes with perhaps a bitter end, but sweet new beginnings.
For sure. So we're back here with Emily, and on this theme of change, something we discussed earlier was this large scale, really intense change we're experiencing right now, which is climate change. Yeah. But like I said earlier, you're not only calling it out, but you're doing something about it. So tell us what you have coming forward for UMD and climate change.
Yeah, well, I would say I personally am not, the one who's doing everything about it. It's
For
all
sure.
of us that are working to stop climate change. And if anyone has heard of Greta Thunberg, I say Thunberg, but I think her name is actually pronounced Thunberg. She's Swedish, but
Yeah.
I just can't say that because people will be like, who?
Yeah.
Anyways,
Phonetically.
she is she's a teenager from Sweden, and she started striking from school every Friday. So she wouldn't go to school and she would sit outside the Swedish parliament. And now it's turned into this giant movement. It's called Fridays for Future, where students don't go to school on Friday. They're trying to pressure their governments to do something about climate change and treat it with the urgency that they need to. And I'm definitely really concerned about climate change. I just read a study that said that there's a high risk of human civilization ending in 2050, which I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of studies
50
like
for
this.
that.
Yeah.
And Dylan, thoughts on the
yeah.
validity of these studies?
I don't know.
Well,
Let's
I
ask
mean,
the environmental science major how that is.
I'm no final word.
Right.
However,
I would like your opinion.
yeah, definitely. I think climate change is very interesting because it's so multidimensional.
Right,
and
right.
Almost everything we do, from our consumption patterns, whether that be buying clothes, whether that be eating food and where we buy our food from, to, the organizations we put our money into. Every dollar is a vote, which is a cliche. However, it's very, very true. But there's studies come out like the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is like this panel of hundreds of scientists from all over the world, very valid scientific group, came out in 2018 with this report that said if we don't quell climate change and global warming to under 1.5 degrees Celsius, this background, average temperature we have, if average surface temperatures go above 1.5 degrees Celsius, then we are supremely, and this is why we're on digital, fucked.
Oh no.
So they say
Dylan's
that. Hi, Mom. And so we do have, they say 12 years to really, really, really get our act together. And 12 years is a very short amount of time because we have been really significantly influencing our environment, humans, that is. So, yeah, it's a really, like I said, interdimensional problem. And it's really awesome that so many people are now talking about it. But like I said, talking about it's one thing, doing something about it is another. So Emily, tell us about the climate strike that's coming up in DC.
Yes. So building off of Greta's Fridays for Future movement, a bunch of people, I'm not even sure who organized it. Probably, I know Greta was a part of it, but just a lot of students who are very concerned about climate change organized this week-long action, or just, worldwide action week, from September 20th through the 27th. And the 20th is supposed to be the Global Climate Strike Day, where like students around the world are calling on everybody to join them and strike on Friday the 20th. So that means skipping class, skipping work, skipping whatever obligations you have, and going to join whatever protest is happening. And we're trying to organize UMD to get involved, to strike on Friday. And so we're going to be handing out flyers at the First Look Fair tomorrow, and Wednesday, and probably also, tomorrow is Wednesday. Wednesday and Thursday.
You got it.
And if people do strike, so that means that you wouldn't go to class, we also have this sample email that you could send your professors that says, I'm not going to be in class on Friday, here's why, and I also want to encourage you to cancel your class and participate in the strike.
Interesting.
So that not only would that encourage more students to participate, but also it's, the strike is not just a student strike, it's for everybody.
Absolutely.
And also I talked to, I, along with others involved with organizing, talked to the union that represents UMD employees, and they are officially supporting the climate strike.
Wow. So what does that mean?
So they're not allowed to ask their workers to strike at UMD because they have a contract, which means that the contract just says, they negotiate the contract every year, and the contract says, here are the policies that UMD employees will be subject to. So it says how much they, overtime policies and stuff like that. And since the union negotiates with the university to agree on a contract, it essentially means that if the university abides by the contract, the workers will not go on strike. So it's they're not really they're not gonna call on the workers to strike, but they are officially supporting everyone else who's striking, and we're gonna send out some information through their networks about it. And we have a staff letter of support for the strike.
Well, that's great. Will you be at the climate strike next Friday?
I will be at the climate strike, and
Nice.
I hope to see everybody else there.
Absolutely.
Where can they meet you?
We will be leaving from McKeldin, at the Testudo in front of McKeldin, at 9:30 a.m. Or I guess 9. We'll be meeting at 9. And then we'll be taking the metro over to John Marshall Park, which is right near the mall in Washington, D.C., and marching to the Capitol marching to the White House, excuse me. And there's going to be thousands of people in D.C. So I think it's just really everyone should go, not only because climate change is an important issue, but also just I really want to see myself in this global movement and see how many other people are out here concerned about this. And hopefully that this strike can be built into a larger movement that would be sustaining on UMD's campus. And we do have some demands to UMD that are included in the strike, because we want to have, I worry sometimes that the strikes are sort of I don't want it to be like a one-off sort of like, okay, we're gonna skip school today, and then we're done, you know.
Yeah.
And so we are trying to build this into more of a sustaining movement at UMD.
For
well,
sure.
If more students are concerned about this, it is happening not this Friday, but next, correct? The
Next
20th
Friday,
of September.
September 20th. And if you want more information, we do have a website.
Cool.
It is, if you go to ter.ps/UMDFFF. FFF stands for Fridays for Future.
Awesome.
So I'll just repeat that.
Yeah, please.
ter.ps, so like terps, but with a dot, /UMDFFF.
Great.
Well, we'll definitely be posting that on our Facebook page later.
Check it out.
Yeah, so if you guys want some more information, you can go ahead and check that out. Emily, I was interested, you mentioned that your group is making some sort of demands to UMD. What do these demands entail?
It's mostly about divesting from fossil fuels and making UMD a fossil fuel free campus. But if you want to look at all the demands, they're also located on the website. I'm not like super involved with the with environmental groups. I'm mostly like from the union, and I was like in charge of getting the union support for it.
Mm-hmm.
But there
Great
are
job.
people that are super and that have been super involved with the environmental movements on UMD's campus for a long time, and they were mainly in charge of deciding what demands they wanted to make. So like people who have been like are seniors here, and they've been like activists this whole time.
Well, it seems like that change from fossil fuels to a more sustainable energy source is a good one.
Absolutely. So we'll be right back with some more conversation with Emily. Right now we're going to go back to some Chaka Khan. This next track is off of her 1980 album called Naughty, and the track is called Move Me No Mountain. Enjoy.
Chaka Khan is coming at us hard with some funky tracks tonight. That one we just listened to was called Move Me No Mountain off of her 1980 album, Naughty. Well, we're back in the studio. I'm here with Dylan, and we are here with our friend Emily Fox. Emily, thank you once again for joining us in the community garden. We really appreciate you having you here and bringing us some awesome information.
Absolutely.
Thanks
so
for having
one
me.
more thing we want to discuss before we get going here is the union on campus. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so I am an organizer / I would say I'm like an intern organizer because I'm pretty young and have not organized much. So
True.
with the union on campus that represents UMD employees. So it's AFSCME Local 1072. AFSCME is a national union. I think there might be, I know there's like an international, but I'm not really sure how that functions. It represents public employees. So people who work for the state governments and federal governments are all part of AFSCME if they have a unionized workplace. And the local just means that it's like refers to like everybody who works at UMD. So there's like different locals across Maryland and across the nation, I guess.
Well, I'm sorry for butchering the name.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, no, I think it's good to explain because, a lot of people, and I think this is just sometimes why I think unions are more inaccessible to people is that there is a lot of sort of jargon.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't know much about what a union is or how they function.
Yeah,
Can you
so,
start with the basics there?
Basically, a union is it's like a mechanism in which people who are working in a place can negotiate with their employer about the terms of their employment. So if you don't have a union, I'm not sure if you don't have a contract or if you just don't get a say in your contract. I think you do. You have a contract, but you don't get you don't get the ability to negotiate. But if you have a union, it's a democratic organization, and you can be a member of the union. And if you're a member of the union, you'd be able to like get a say in it, and you would also like pay dues to it. And they just advocate for like your issues. And I guess I'm sort of talking about it in like a they form, and I think that's like, I guess sort of like a fallacy. Like a union is not really like a separate entity of people that's like representing employees. It's more like the employees just banding together, like uniting basically. And
right.
like if they all have like common issues that they're dealing with, they can bring it to their employer together, and then they have like more power that way.
Well, what would you say the band here at UMD, just give us, say, the principal issue that they are trying to negotiate within their contract?
So, I mean, I think it's sort of like wages. I mean, like wages is a big one, but wages are not negotiated within the contract. It's more, we have to negotiate wages with the state, because the AFSCME workers are they get their paychecks from the state governments, so it depends on like the state budget. But with how it works now, the state is able to allocate money for UMD workers, but there's like special provisions in it that says that the university is allowed to allocate, these funds however they want, and they can also like set some aside for special purposes, which they do. They basically like just cut off the budget of UMD workers for special purposes, like quote unquote special purposes, whatever that means. And so we do like lobby nights with the state and stuff. And then also like another thing we recently got passed through the state government is there's two kinds of workers at UMD. So there's exempt and there's non-exempt. Exempt means that you're like salaried. And non-exempt means you get paid out for like hourly. And before we got this bill passed, exempt workers could be fired without being given a reason. So like most people, if you want to like fire them, you have to have a just cause for it.
Right.
But they were like they were like letting people go without telling them why, and then so we got this bill passed that said they would have to have a just cause for like terminating their employment.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different issues though. Like one of the biggest issues, and I think this is why organizing at UMD is hard, is because there's so many different people working different jobs. Like there's some people that are like housekeepers, facilities management people, like groundskeepers, and there's other people who like work in desks and like offices, and they're like coordinators and stuff. But like for the housekeepers, one of the issues that we were dealing, and I know a lot of people were talking about the mold on campus and how it was affecting students, but the university was making the housekeepers clean out the mold without any kind of protection or training or anything like that, and a lot of them were getting really sick because of it.
This.
Yeah.
And even after that, like the Diamondback article came out, and they've you know, the university was pressured to like get other people to come in and clean the mold. They were still making them clean the mold after that.
Dang.
And so it's sort of like if they can get away with it, they'll sort of do whatever, as long as there isn't like, you know, attention shining on. So that's why the union is important, because if there wasn't someone who was concerned about it, these things would just go unchecked.
Well, Emily, again, thank you so much for doing that work on campus and being a part of all that work going on. And thank you for being here on the Community Garden. We really appreciate that.
We want to thank Emily one last time for coming on the Community Garden. Thank you very much, Emily Fox, and Chaka Khan for providing a beautiful soundtrack to our conversation. You guys can catch the next episode of the Community Garden next Tuesday from 10 to 11 right here on WMUC, College Park Radio Digital. Enjoy this last track from Chaka Khan. It is called A Woman in a Man's World. It is off Chaka's 1978 album, Chaka. Hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
This is good night from us. Good night.
All right.
No, good night.